good. You guys can. Oh, you're going to get the first question. But you're not afraid. Okay. Of this, you know what comment I get from all my friends for the last 9 years is that I love to put angmos on stage. If you don't understand what's angmo, the three of you are angmo, right? You understand, right? Okay, angmo. Angmo means, in the literal translation, means red hair. Is it red hair? Yeah. But it's not a bad word. In Hong Kong, it's worse. In Hong Kong, the meaning is worse. But what happened is that, to explain the rest of you, right? Most of these folks are more daring. They dare to come up here and share ideas. And the reason why there is less of the people like him, because when they come on board, they get tortured very, very fast. And then they're like, bloody hell, Paul, you treat Angmo better than you treat us. But it's not so true. I treat you all just as nice. He's Harley Davidson, so I love motorbike. Hinted for 2 years already, still hinting. I better not go on with motorbike. Let's go into the topic per se, right? Louis from Ace Insurance. I met the Ace Insurance guys again 1 year ago. Ace Insurance is very much into cargo insurance, risk management for the supply chain and logistics people. So I thought he was a good addition. Stefan, I met him like 3-4 years ago, I think. It was when he was working with NUS on the sustainability project, DHL and NUS. Then later, DHL took the whole project and run on your own. So Stefan heads that. Marcus, I know him like 6 years ago when we first played golf. His golf is really bad. I mean, compared to me, it's really bad. But my golf is equally bad, so guess how bad we are.
Paul, does golf playing qualify me for this topic today?
No. Golf has no basis. Golf is totally environmentally non-friendly, okay? So, yeah, and then it's a waste of time. So I stopped playing golf already. That's why there's no golf game after this kind of thing anymore, right? So that's Marcus. And by the way, Marcus is from a beautiful country called Germany, from a beautiful city.
Stuttgart.
Yeah, Stuttgart.
Where Porsche is made and Mercedes is come out, Daimler is coming from.
I thought it was Munich, where BMW is. Okay. Okay, and then we have Einze. Einze, this is really a first introduction, first meeting, and this will be history from now on. Next 10 years, I'll remember you. Met him also because of a interesting guy that we know for many years, Kerry Mong. Kerry left DHL and then joined Accenture, right? This guy is like forever friend, and very good to torture, especially on stage, but he will torture me back later, so let's see how this thing will go, right? You cannot hit me too much, but I can hit you more. I can stop you from hitting me, right? So I'm going to do something like this, right? Risk management and sustainability. In an industry where it's always about sales and it's always about infrastructure and capex, this is two issues that are often kept under the carpet, never seen until something else happened. I think that the risk management and sustainability are very much fad sometimes. Fad that people take it and then they promote it, but they are actually not serious about it. So I need your 5 of you, your opinion, what your thoughts behind. You can focus on one of it as risk, and you can focus on sustainability and talk through your thoughts behind. Are these really concerns for companies? For you, it's a concern. For you guys, do you think companies are really concerned about it? At the same time, a little bit more introduction about yourself, right? Those things that I do it wrong, you get it right. So JK, since you're standing beside me, JK, start first.
Sure. So you want to know more
yourself
about
first,
me?
yeah.
So, I work at Harley Davidson, so I work for the manufacturer, 111-year-old company this year. I'm the director for sales operations for the Asia Pacific region. So for us, the Asia Pacific region covers from Japan down to Australia and from India in the west all the way to Guam. Strangely, Guam, which belongs to the US, in the east. So that's our coverage. So if you look at Harley Davidson is first and foremost known for motorcycles. So it's, when you talk about gas guzzling motorcycles that produce a lot of noise and heat, and putting that person up here on a sustainability panel, it's a bit ironic, but I guess that's the way it is. So motorcycles, we've also have another part of our business that focuses on supporting our riders, right, which is parts and accessories. And the third piece of our business is called general merchandise, and that's all the clothing. So I'm dressed like that because this is sort of like the way we dress every day at work. It's got to be on brand. We have a regional office here in Singapore that was opened about 3.5 years ago, and that's it. What's your?
Yeah. So this sustainability and risk management fad.
Yeah, no, it's not. For us, it absolutely isn't. So if you look at, if you read about Harley-Davidson and what our CEO talks about, right? So we have 4 pillars within the company: growth, continuous improvement, leadership development, and supporting all of that, right? We have a 4th pillar that's called sustainability. And so for us, sustainability is critical to everything we do. So, and risk management for us is a subset of making sure that things are sustainable. So it's not a fad, it's not something that comes and goes. In Harley-Davidson, it's very much a value that we embrace within the company. So around everything we do, in the same way we look at doing business fairly or being honest, being sustainable is also very much part of us. So like I said, ironic because sustainability, in a motorcycle world. So it's about, for us, it's about what we use to manufacture our motorcycles, how we ship, how we buy, the philosophy that we have in sourcing of our products and services. Yeah, and so it's got to be built into everything you do, right? It cannot be a standalone thing. Also, it's become so important, especially in the last 3 or 4 years for us, that we have a chief sustainability officer within the company, right? And if you look at the companies that are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, I think you see that increasingly a sustainability officer is becoming more commonplace than a rare thing.
Interesting, you got the CSO. Right? Okay, I thought it's Chief Supply Chain Officer. Okay, Ainsley, your point of view, a bit more about yourself as well.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Because indeed, we do go back already. I think about 15 minutes. So that's so. Let me give you a little bit more. So briefly about myself. So weird Dutch name, Inze, from the Netherlands. Came to Singapore about 6 years ago to set up Accenture sustainability practice here in Asia Pac. And I think the very fact that that the economy and the business community is able to sustain me being here for already 6 years, providing advisory services to our large corporate clients as to how to deal with sustainability in itself, I think is a proof point that it's not that much of a fad. In fact, for Accenture, I think sustainability is a very attractive and interesting business opportunity. I think globally there's a $1 billion plus dollar industry, for us, by now already, and just by professional services, right? I think sustainability with regards to supply chain. I think my point will really be about security of supply and security of demand, being probably the 2 most important reasons why businesses are really looking into this, not just as a matter of managing and mitigating risk, but also as a way to tap into new business opportunities. First data point I'll give you is a piece of research that we do every 3 years with the United Nations Global Compact, where we basically take pulse of the corporate sustainability agenda globally. So we survey about 1,000 business leaders, chief executives. We interview about 100 of them as one of the co-authors, and I think one of the main conclusions of that is that businesses see that the economy is not on track to sustain the planet in the long run. Business leaders also acknowledge that business is not doing enough. And business leaders actually also sort of admit that they themselves are not doing enough. So they see this, and at the same time they see this as a huge business opportunity for them to differentiate, to grow. Now, why is that? And I'll get into a couple of examples. I think security of supply and security of demand. You gave the example of the Thailand flooding. I think another very simple example is Singapore and Singapore's water strategy and energy strategy for that matter. It's all about diversification of supply. Now, is that the most optimal solution from a pure logistic perspective? It probably isn't. But history has taught us that you simply, it's a matter of national security in case of Singapore, and in the case of a business, it is a sustainability issue. If you don't attend to it one way or another, sooner or later you run into issues of security of supply. Then security of demand. What is that all about? I think compliance is one issue that we just spoke about earlier on with Marcus before the session. I think it's not only about compliance with regulatory requirements. I think it's also about sort of compliance with moral standards, compliance with sort of consumer demands. And I'll give you one other example, and then I try to tie it together, supply and demand, and mention a couple of things about sort of innovation in business models. An example, I think, is in palm oil. So some of you may know this example, some of you may not. But there's palm oil is an issue. Whichever way you look at it, it has some sort of negative side effects. The haze here in Singapore once every year, just to give you one example. So there's a lot of not-for-profit organizations making a lot of fuss about it. Long story short, one of the largest palm oil sort of plantation companies was being sort of negatively publicized in the newspapers a couple of years ago, and as a result of that, there are by a not-for-profit organization mobilizing public opinion. And as a result of that, their two most important and their two biggest customers dropped them like a bomb in a matter of hours. So this particular company, because they hadn't attended to sort of supply chain sustainability issues, which I call it sourcing issues, lost 60% of their demand in a matter of hours. Okay, so that's a big risk. You don't want. So that's risk of security of supply, security of demand. Now, what are some of those, I think, innovative business models that I see emerge to attend to that? I'll give you one example. It's Michelin. And I tie all of this to a concept that we call the circular economy, which is something that we do a lot of research on with the World Economic Forum. Long story short, what Michelin does, I think, is very interesting. We all buy tires for our cars, and when the tires are sort of flat, we dispose of them, and then those tires become a big issue because they end up somewhere in the ditch, or they're being sort of put on fire and emit all sorts of nasty smoke. So what Michelin sort of started to look into is, can we not move to a source raw materials, manufacture, sell, dispose model to a model where we sort of close that loop? And what they came up with is this notion of tires as a service. Very much sort of along the lines of which Rolls-Royce is, for example, providing propulsion by the hour to airport, sort of to airlines. They basically enter with their customers into a contract. So you don't buy the tire, but you enter into a contract that you'll be provided with good tires for the duration of a year or 2 years, and then Michelin handles the rest. And a couple of things are interesting, I think, about this. First of all, the whole reverse supply chain issue, the whole reverse logistics issue for Michelin, what to do with these tires that are being disposed of, is being taken care of, because all of a sudden they can be sure that they're being handed back sort of the old tires once they're done. At the same time, it's also a business opportunity, even more so for Michelin, because in the old world, they sold tires and they had to hope that the customer would return and not turn to Goodyear for the next set of tires. Now, they're ensured that as and when the client needs new tires, they return to Michelin. So there's a much tighter and much closer relationship between the service provider, Michelin in this particular case, and the customer. And I think, and there's a whole slew of examples, I think, in this category. But I think it's very interesting development. Again, I tie it to circular economy, tying security of supply with security of demand and innovating new business models. And just as a thought, and I'll leave you with that, is I wouldn't be surprised if in not too long from now, we can actually buy shoes as a service. Yeah. You may be laughing, but shoes as a service. For those, who is an avid sort of runner? Running in the morning or in the evening? So I am. Okay, so that's 4. That's not a whole lot. Anyway, so 5. Thank you, Paul. So, but then you know that you actually have to replace your running shoes every 1,000 kilometers or so, or 800, or whatever it is. But at some point,
I run until it has holes.
There you go.
I don't have money.
Barefoot also can. So but anyway, if you use the shoes, you need to replace it. So I don't think about that. And then I dispose of my shoes, and it's also a big issue, like the tires. Shoes companies, at some point, will start to sell you shoes as a service. And they will not just rely on you to return them to them. They will actually put chips in those shoes that detect the number of kilometers that are run, connected to a mobile app, so to provide you all sorts of statistics and tell you, hey, Paul, actually, you need to replace your shoes now. Let me take them back, and let me make you a very good offer for a set of replacement shoes.
You should join us last evening for the IoT. This story we have sold. And then you cover my third questions really about this business is sustainable.
But Internet of Things is a very important emerging enabler that allows for these business models. Because 10 years ago, you couldn't do this.
Of course. So from your commentaries, it's no longer a fad. So let's talk about it as it's not a fad. Company adoption. Continue. But more about yourself.
Yeah. But I guess that was a good example. Under this group of people, such new business models might not be sustainable, the shoes as a service, because if it's only for runners here. Okay. About myself, well, Paul, you mentioned already I'm German. I'm not based in Singapore, but I did my first projects in the region 19 years ago, so since that time I'm a frequent...
Which country is that?
Singapore and Malaysia at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Implementing software, of course, and this is the core of my background. I'm running a software company, German-based software company. We provide end-to-end software solutions for supply chain management, global trade management. We are here in Singapore with a team of 15 people for 13 years already. I personally founded this entity over here. So it was always a hobby for me to look into Asia, and it's not really a hobby, it's an important market meanwhile, and it will be an even more important market in the future. And maybe let me come back to the topic here, because we as a company, we are not only providing software solutions to move the goods from A to B and to support that kind of processes. We started to look into compliance issues, and this was the discussion I had with Inz at the beginning, quite early, more than 20 years ago, because compliance is a wide field, but for example, if you are a company shipping from a country to another, you have to deal with lots of rules and regulations, and if you are not dealing the right way, if you're not compliant to a certain extent, then the things will not move. Or at least you will spend a lot of money, you will waste a lot of time and effort in order to get the things done. So this was more or less the start for us to look into compliance, but it became much more over time. For example, after 9/11, you know, they at least in Europe and also US, they implemented a lot of new regulations for companies to check about the entities you deal with, you trade with, or meanwhile we have a lot of laws, what kind of goods must not be delivered to certain countries, and we just have to look at Russia at the moment, the embargo which was put in place. It puts a threat on companies, how they can deal in this region and with the partners located over there. And in order to make things easier, today nobody can keep an overview and have the expertise to know for certain cases how to actually act and what is a compliant approach. So systems, and this is what we provide, must help and support the processes in the background. The question also was here, sustainable supply chain and risk management. Risk management, from my understanding, is, let's say, a part of a sustainable approach for companies and enterprises. Risk management means to deal with the expected unexpected, and also the unexpected, which is more worse, of course, and put measures in place somehow to overcome daily problems, but especially major disruptions we see from various origins, of course, natural disasters, but suppliers' failures and much more stuff like this. Whereas on the other side, sustainable supply chain management, from my understanding, is much more a philosophy already, or a business model, which actually might change the whole setup of a company, the whole way things are handled, and maybe also, and this comes back to the example with the shoes, may introduce completely new business models. For example, we as a software provider, we are already quite advanced in terms of providing services, where in the past you had distributed software solutions and installed on premises. Now everything is coming out of the cloud, and this is a much more efficient way to deal with this kind of services, and of course also much more economical way. So sustainability has a lot to do with economical, ecological, but also social topics at the end of the day.
Looks like my question was actually on the wrong end. It's never a fad. It's actually a business thing now, right? Maybe can I get Stefan? And you cover the part on the. Is it been driven by compliance? Like just now, Enzo was saying something like there was a regulatory part to it. So I know you're in it for longest time now. I mean, longest time is about 5 years. So is regulation a cause of the adoption of sustainability?
That's a very good question. Maybe about myself. Hello, I'm Stefan. I'm with DHL Supply Chain. I've been in the sustainability arena for the past 10 years. Worked in Europe, worked for DHL on a global level and developed their Go Green program. And when I moved to Singapore, I have taken over responsibility for DHL sustainability efforts here in the region, and I'm leading a collaboration that we have with universities here in Singapore, currently with the Singapore Management University, but also with NUS and SUTD and other universities. And my responsibility is to also bring together these two very different worlds of business and academia to innovate new solutions and new approaches for companies to embrace more sustainable business practices. And in addition, I'm running a non-for-profit organization called Green Freight Asia, which was incorporated here in Singapore, which is run by DHL, by UPS, by IKEA, Lenovo, HP, and other industry leaders. It's a collaboration to understand what we as an industry can do to reduce our footprint, our environmental footprint, and to improve our sustainability resilience. So this is about me, and I think the question that you just raised is exactly what I noted down. So what does sustainability really mean? And to me, the definition of sustainability is really the entrance point of a company to understand how to drive their sustainability agenda. So when I talk to companies about sustainability, this conversation quickly evolves around environmental sustainability. And after this, it evolves around CO2 emissions, carbon emissions, air pollution, and all these kinds of stuff. And then I realized that many companies have parked this topic in CSR departments, in departments where experts deal with these issues. So the question is, how can this department become part of a core strategy of a company to make sustainability really an appealing topic for a company to drive, to improve its sustainability. So what does sustainability really mean? So to me, sustainability means to prepare a company, to make company ready for the future challenges that this company will be exposed to. Be it issues around flooding, be it issues around the energy dilemma, where energy becomes more and more expensive. And how can we make sure that supply chains in the future will be affordable to customers? And we have seen supply chains becoming longer geographically and more complex in the past 20 years. So how can we become ready as companies to deal with these big challenges in the future? So having said that, so I would love to see companies see sustainability not as an obligation to just adhere and comply with requirements from external stakeholders, because that's just a motivation that comes from outside the company. And as soon as this external motivation disappears, the sustainability effort disappears suddenly, which is not a big surprise. So I would rather like to see companies embrace sustainability as an opportunity to generate value, to create more revenue, to create higher profits, if you will. And as it becomes a core strategy, it becomes really something that sustains in the company, that is just not something that is there for a couple of years for marketing purposes, but is really a solid pillar in the company strategy. So our efforts with the Green Transformation Lab, which is this collaboration with SMU and other universities, is to find out a way to convince companies to turn this sustainability approach from something that companies just want to adhere to meet compliance, to something that really creates value to the company and to their customers.
Thanks, Stefan. Luis, I know you're from Ace Insurance side, so maybe I take the point that Marcus talked about, the unexpected part. How costly is an unexpected thing? I mean, I didn't expect that, it didn't expect it actually happened, right? And how to mitigate such kind of unexpected, which is very funny. Reese, how do you get to that point?
Hi, I'm Louis Lim. I'm the regional risk manager for ACE Insurance in Asia Pacific. I've been with the firm for, 18 years now. A little bit about myself. I started my working life as a cargo surveyor about 35 years ago. In those earlier years as a cargo surveyor, I was focused mainly a lot on loss assessment work. And there were a lot of losses surveys that I've conducted. After a while, I sat down and started to think to myself, I said, wow, I mean, there's a lot of work for me. Business is good, but the insurance company must be suffering like hell, because they're paying losses left, right, and center. It got me down to thinking, now, all this while, the insurance business or marine cargo business has always been very reactive to losses, and they only take action when a loss occurs. Now, I thought about it, and I said, now, what if we can find a service or a solution for the insurers, all right, that when we apply it, it would help to minimize or mitigate or even prevent losses from occurring. So that's when I started getting this notion on risk management. And over the years, I've been working closely with insurers, claims managers, all right, and cargo forwarders, looking at ways and how we can help prevent cargo losses. Now, I'm not an expert on sustainability issues. I think my fellow guest speakers here would be able to elaborate that in more detail for you. But where I'm coming from is from the area of what we call cargo risk management. As we know, supply chain, transportation is the main crux of it all. We need to deliver goods from point A to point B. So there's a lot of risks in between that can happen. Now, our claim statistics basically shows that at least about almost 80% of cargo losses are actually preventable. All right, had a appropriate loss prevention or loss control measures been taken, you know. So, and coming from there, if we can have controls over this 80% of losses, all right, that would be something that underwriters would see in a very positive light. All right. Of course, fortuitous losses can and do happen, geopolitical situations, catastrophic conditions do also give rise to cargo losses in transit. But then again, that's what the insurance is there for. You know? So when we are talking risk management, all right, we are actually, or cargo risk management, well, basically what we are looking at is essentially to look at and defining where are the soft spots, where are the areas in which, all right, cargo has a higher tendency of sustaining damage or loss, be it from handling or from theft, pilferage, or even from water damage, these are the three main categories of losses that we commonly see, you know, in cargo claims. So, what insurers these days have now are looking very positively towards risk management and working at more proactively to assess risk and ensuring that whatever measures that can be taken is taken, all right, in order to give that consignment a better chance of arriving at destination in a safe and sound manner. So your question, can you please repeat your question to me again?
How do you mitigate unexpected?
Well, how do we mitigate expected losses? I've just explained, you know, we can identify where, but unexpected losses, well, cases when unexpected losses, you know, when it happens, you know. But I suppose, I mean, we look back on stats, all right? I mean, with cargo movements, all right? A lot of times, some losses can be weather-related, all right? So we know that certain times of the year, it's not a good time to be shipping and preparing the cargo to meet the kind of weather conditions. Here in the Southeast Asian region, we see a lot of tug barge movements, all right? Basically, it's a very common mode of transport of goods moving around the Asian region, especially into Indonesia. All right, and tug barges are predominantly used for bringing cargo to very far-flung places where traditional ships can't go or won't go to. All right, but many a times, you know, when shippers employ tugs and barges, they leave it to their forwarders to get the vessels in place, to get the cargo loaded. But they fail to recognize that with tug and barge, the barge is basically a dumb barge. It's not motorized. It needs the tug to guide the barge along. And in most cases, the tug that is paired with the barge is not very compatible, as I found it. Now, what happens is that when you have an underpowered tug towing a barge, all right, if the weather is fine, it's okay. But the minute it encounters heavy weather en route, all right, what you see is that a situation where the tug now do not have the sufficient power of controlling the barge. And the reverse can occur if the weather is really bad. Now you have the tug actually towing the barge. When a situation like that happens, the tug would normally cut the line and let the barge drift. Now, a barge without propulsion, a dumb barge as we call it, drifting in the rough open sea is a surefire way of losing your cargo, because the barge will be rocking and rolling and the cargo will start to shift, and that's where you have issues of the vessel capsizing and losing the cargo in total. So now these are areas where we look at, you know, that we can predict, and then we have solutions, or we put in conditions that could face these situations.
Okay, so essentially I see this, right? The four of you are cost. Cost. You need to pay money to get it done, right? And remind me of the early years whereby the warehouse guys, we're called warehouse guys, and storemen are cost to the company. They treat us really badly. I started 20 over years ago. They treat us really badly, and now it's different, now it's reversed. Now we tell them that you don't treat us nicely, the goods will never move. And you can't sell. So now we are treated very nice. We are fitted with like fame, right? So now you guys are cost center. Sustainability and risk cost a hell lot of money for companies like them. Is this really true? I mean, maybe you answer last, right? Because let them tell you how much it costs to manage all those kind of things, then you answer, right? So in this case, managing risk that you can't in any way statistically prove it or quantify it, would it mean that the premium is going to be sky high?
Well, I think insurance underwriting and rating, we actually look at several areas. All right. One is the nature of the cargo itself. Two is the type of or mode of transportation that it takes, that it's going to be taking. All right, and where it's going, from where to where. All right. Now, all these are areas where we will then look at and identify whether or not this is a risk that, on the risk level, is this something that underwriters find reasonable to underwrite, and if not, then they would decline. Now, and they will rate the risk accordingly if they find it something which is doable, and then we go from there. Now, for risk management, cost-wise, yes, there is obviously a cost. With cargo risk management, basically it's all about supervision. It's all about having processes assessed, and when the cargo starts to move, we have someone there to oversee the safe handling and movement of the cargo. So that, yes, there are costs incurred there. Independent surveyors that we use, all right, they do charge for their time, all right, likewise, I think also for companies, for the insurers, all right, these are costs that we sometimes build into the premium, or at times it can be built separately out from the premium to the client.
So, yeah, we got the numbers. Stefan, is that one of the reasons why adoption is also slow, because it's actually a cost factor?
Regarding the costs, I would give the answer as follows. It depends really on where the company stands on the evolution of sustainability. I see different stages of sustainability that the company is at. The first stage is you comply to regulations and laws and make sure that you don't violate any regulations in the environmental space and the social space. That might come with cost, because you might change your processes, the documentation and everything. The second step is that companies go beyond regulations and compliance and try to do good things and try to use this as a differentiator, differentiating themselves against their competition, and use this as a value creator. But it also comes with cost, because you have to invest in people, you have to invest in technology, in new processes. And the third step that many companies embrace is using sustainability as a value creator, to become a little bit more smart in what kind of projects you embark on, because in the end you want to make sure that you do not only spend on sustainability, but you use sustainability as a driver, as a motor to create value for your company and your clients. So this is the third step that I see. So sustainability to me can actually create value. It does not only come with a price tag, it really depends on how you approach sustainability. What was again the second part of your question?
I cannot remember, but it was for him.
But I had one point that I wanted to make that I now forgot, because I forgot your question.
How do I mitigate risks that are really like unexpected, and how do I pay the cost? Because if it's really dead and the insurance guys don't take it up, what do? I still need to get it insured. So, but no answer to that. I think the cost is too high.
Right.
Yeah, but it's okay. We can come back to whatever I missed out.
Okay.
Marcus.
Yeah. I fully.
If you're a cost factor, you actually.
Of course, I'm a cost factor. Of course, always. but doing business is always costly at the beginning. Later on, you have to achieve the profit. That's the point. And first of all, I fully agree to what Stefan has said. It depends strongly on the maturity level of the enterprise and the company itself, how you can see it. Let me give you an example. Let's take the Thailand flood. People or companies might be differently prepared for such disruptions or disasters. And the level of maturity has a high influence of, for example, how much, if such a disaster happens, how much it goes down the supply chain in what time. So mature enterprises, they really can postpone the effect and stay longer in business, for example, as those who are not really prepared. They might also reduce the duration of such disruption according to their maturity, and reduce also the disruption severity. And last but not least, they might be much faster in recovering compared to other enterprises at a lower level of maturity. So what can we learn out of this? If you have implemented a really sustainable model and a mature risk management, you will definitely gain a competitive advantage over the competitors. And the interesting thing is such disasters, for example, they are in many cases a game changer for the whole market. And this is an interesting factor we must consider always.
Yeah, I like your points because it sounds like the insurance guys come in to sell me insurance and then tell me that if I die and then this sort of kind of thing. But the postpone effect, reduce duration or disruption, and the recovery part is actually very interesting. I would think that is the reason why companies actually go into it, but only those with the money. Jens?
Yes, Paul.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a cost factor. Yeah. You're definitely a big cost factor. If anybody asks for a censure, I had to be Harley Davidson.
Okay.
I had to be a Harley Davidson. I will never call you.
So definitely do call me up. You got my number now, I think. So no, I think if you think about it and take a couple of steps back, this is simply about business, right? And this is about risk management. And of course, there's a cost to it. And the simple trade-off will be, okay, what are the chances that this calamity will happen? What are the costs if it happens? You multiply the two, and you take that amount and you compare it with the amount of the mitigating actions. And that's the business case, and it's really that simple. Now that's the short term. And I think a couple of times already mentioned, the issue is that you take the pain in the short term, and the timelines for sort of the returns are obviously long term. And actually, the thing is, it may never happen again. The calamity it's like, oh, we could have saved ourselves a lot of money. It's like, oh. So that's sort of the challenge. Now, I think the trick is, and again, I there are plenty of examples of not just businesses, but also nations. And again, I think Singapore is a very good example of that when they think about those mitigating actions, they are clever as to what to do. Okay, so I gave the example of the palm oil company. I gave the example of water. Security of supply of water at the nation of Singapore. 50 years ago, this was an issue. Singapore saw it coming, started investing in the 4 taps. And look, today, HyFlux is the world's leader in high-tech water technology and purification technologies. So, born out of necessity back then, it is a huge business and business opportunity for Singapore, and Singapore-listed companies. Another example of a niche food technology company, chief executive I spoke with yesterday. Sort of they are seeing these supply chain issues in in the food industry all over the place. Whether you're looking at gula melaka or whether you're looking at palm oil, there's all sorts of inefficiencies in those supply chains. There's huge waste. Those guys are systematically assessing the supply chains of various of those products, looking at where is the next sort of batch of scarcity going to occur. Because you cannot just keep on sort of creating thousands of acres of new palm oil plantations or palm sugar plantations. So you need to come up with alternatives and the businesses that identify those niches first and can come up with solutions for that. They will be sort of the successful folks from tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Still got cost. So how do you justify their cost? You have to have a way, right? Because you have a CSO.
Well, like,
Is there? Yeah, it's on. Oh, it's dead.
right. So like, it was mentioned earlier, it is the cost of doing business, right? So I think we, especially within the Harley context, we don't look at the products that we sell as commodities. Right. If you understand the Harley Davidson brand, I mean, for us, it's all about the brand. It's about protecting the brand. It's about delivering the brand promise, delivering the brand experience, right? And the purpose of the company, delivering dreams of personal freedom every day. So, if it's got to be built into that. It's got to be built into that. The operations, the very backbone of how we deliver our products and how we deliver these dreams to our customers every day. So if you look at the cost, yes, there is a cost to it, but what is the cost of not doing it? The cost of not doing it is absolutely many, many times greater than the cost of doing it. So the cost of not doing it, upsetting a customer, destroying the brand that's been built up for 111 years. The cost of not doing it, not just upsetting your customers, upsetting your stakeholders, upsetting your shareholders, upsetting the governments that you work with, right? So it's if you look at it, I think it's very much now just part of how we do business. And so back to what I said when we first started, it's a value that we believe in. It's a statement that you make, right, when you believe that sustainability is part of the DNA of your operations.
Now I know why you're Harley Davidson and the rest of the guys are still so small. So they look at cost. Only one question. We're hitting. Hi, Sundi, I didn't have a chance. Now you have a chance. Where are my mic runners? My runners are not working, so.
That one is not working. That mic is not working.
I know. I'm the mic runner.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, Sundi Iyer, a supply chain consultant. A great discussion. Thanks, Paul. My question is on the risk management part. And Janse, I agree with I think your analysis was probably too simplistic, where you said, we take the probability of an event multiplied by the impact. If you think of a really, really calamitous event, right, the probability will be very, very, very small, but the impact will be extremely high. So that probably will not, that way we will just be over-designing our supply chains where, anything that can happen, highly, highly unlikely, with a very, very, very high impact, would lead us to build risk mitigation. So I want to change the question from risk mitigation a little bit to risk response, if you will. And maybe I think, Stefan, you talked about the expected, unexpected, and the unexpected expected, right? Or I think Marcus did. So my question is, moving away from risk mitigation, what are examples or what are best practices that people have seen where you say, okay, we can't really manage risk, but when a risk event happens, we respond to it quickly and fast, whether it is the Thailand floods or the earthquakes or the haze situation, and then and that way manage our risk, control my cost, and be good in delivering my promise. So a bit of a broad question, but anyone welcome to respond. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll give a quick response.
Nice.
So
yeah, got to give it a quick response.
Yeah, so first of all, you're not going to mitigate everything yourself. Certain things you can do yourself, and third, certain things you'll turn to insurers for, right? So to be very clear. So those very highly unlikely things, you're right, you may not do yourself. But I think the answer lies in what we already discussed, in diversification of supply, amongst other things. That's one example. If you have diversification of supply and you embed that with the agility to move your sourcing from A to B or to C, depending on what's happening, you're basically addressing what you were just raising. That would be my quick response.
Maybe I may add some other thoughts to that. Of course, diversification is a very important part of it. But if you have more deep knowledge about what's going on, I'm talking about transparency, then you might be able to shift the unexpected more to the expected unexpected side. And this will give you definitely more grip on such kind of incidences, or you can reduce the impact in many cases. For example, another topic is inventory management. Today, it is, in many cases, it is very, very stable, or it was once defined how you manage your inventory, and it will remain always the same. Companies who are really advanced, they move into a much more dynamic model where they use all kinds of information to dynamically allocate inventory in their supply chain on a global level. This also helps us, helps you as a company in order to be much better prepared for such incidences.
You guys got anything to add?
And maybe starting with the basics, maybe it sounds too basic, but first of all, being aware of all the risks that you have in your supply chain is quite a key starting point. I'm not sure how many companies have full end-to-end visibility of all the supply chains, of all the supply chain risks they might be exposed to. And just for DHL, we do have an application that is called Resilience 360 that just maps the supply chain of a customer against the world map and all the live feeds and historical incidents that happened in this region or in the supply chain, so that the customer is more aware of what can happen on the supply chain and how other people dealt with this in the past to mitigate the risk or to reduce the duration of the incident. So I guess transparency and being aware of the complexity of these days supply chains. And one point that we may have missed in this discussion is we talk about approaches of companies that are MNCs, so large corporations. We know what DHL does, we know what our competitors do, we know what other manufacturers do, but when you look at our supply chains, only fractions of what we produce or what we deal with ourselves represents the supply chain. So there's a multiple layer of companies, very small companies, that may not be in the position to deal with all the risks that we deal with every day. So one complication or one challenge that we deal with, be it in the area of sustainability or other areas, is how to engage with these many small enterprises and how to make them aware and make them understand how they can contribute value to make their supply chains more resilient.
Yeah. One comment I'll make is that flexibility and resilience in the supply chain. It's very difficult to imagine designing that from the outset, from the outset, right? Because you really don't know what you don't know. How do you know what's going to happen? I mean, So the thing about the whole thing about resilience and building flexibility is we learn, right? We learn through others, we learn through what we've experienced, and as a result of that, right, you build models. You rely more on data-driven approaches, statistical approaches, whatever. But it's all a combination of experience and learning, right, that companies build over the years from either themselves or from other people.
You guys are confusing me. I got unexpected, and you don't know what you don't know. I'm in trouble. I better do a little bit more analytics and intelligence work. No more question. 9 or 10:30, tea break. So you want to catch them. They are going to be here until 12 p.m., right? Or more. So stay for lunch, but you can catch them over tea break. We start at 11 for the next session. But for now, can we thank our panelists?